Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're hailing from. Welcome to another edition of our Developer Experience Office Hours here on OpenShift TV. We are back after quite the hiatus. Red Hat Summit and KubeCon have been a blur for me, as I'm sure many others, but we are back to our normally scheduled fun. And Serena, you have a very interesting topic on tap today. I find this fascinating. Would you like to tell us a little bit about what we're talking about and who's here?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Chris. Hey, everybody. Glad to be back. So today we've got Evan and Uth, who are two members of Red Hat. And interestingly enough, they were both part of an intricate part of the keynote summit demo of developing different pieces. And through that process, we found out that there was different ways that developers were kind of developing and deploying onto OpenShift and testing. So we thought it would be a really cool series for one of our developer experience office hours. So let me quickly let Evan introduce himself.
Yeah, sure. I hope my mic's still on. So, hey, I'm Evan Shortis. I work at Red Hat on the managed services side of things. So if you're watching Summit, you would have seen us launch our Red Hat OpenShift streams for Apache Kafka. So I work with the team behind that and our managed API management solution. And what I do is I'm a technical marketing manager, so I help enable our field, and I get to make fun demos.
Nice.
Thanks. Anuth, how about yourself?
Yeah, hi, name's Ian Lawson. I'm a domain solution architect specializing in OpenShift. I've been at Red Hat for about 9 years now. I basically evangelize about OpenShift and how good it is. I'm slightly different to most people at Red Hat in that I used to work for a living. I was actually a software developer for 25 years, which is one of the reasons why we're having this talk today, because I'm an old school software developer who's happening to do new school software development.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Yeah. No, this is going to be an awesome show.
Yeah. So I thought we would first try to do a little poll up front, if possible. And I don't know if somebody could possibly help me put something in the chat as well, Chris. I think I did put. I should be sharing.
You are sharing.
Here is the question for everybody, and you should be able to have multi-select. How do you develop on OpenShift today? So are you pushing to get with no webhook and kick off a build in OpenShift yourself? Are you pushing to get with a webhook so the build's automatically kicked off in OpenShift? Are you building locally, pushing to your image registry, hopefully Quay, and deploying that image into OpenShift? Are you pushing to get building and pushing that image to Quay from CI? Another option might be using Red Hat runtimes tooling, whether that's Fabricate and Nodeshift, or is there some other method? So I don't know how many people we have on right now, but hopefully we can get some people to add some answers there, and we could see this possibly auto-populate.
Yes, this will populate live.
So let's see if we get some. I think hopefully we got visitors back in since we've been off for a few weeks. But it will be really interesting, and I'm actually going to leave this open for 7 days so we can come back later on, kind of see where the numbers are, right? If people are watching the recordings. Okay, so cool. Definitely, please take a second to answer that question, and then after this one, what we're also going to do is, which of these have you tried to date? So I am going to try to figure out how do I get out of this. And if I'm going to remember how to do that,
just minimize it. You should be fine.
Just minimize it.
Or you can close it too if you're not going to use it.
I think I might be able to go like this. And then the second question will be, which of these methods have you tried to date? So the first one's which one do you use? Okay. This one's which ones have you tried? And
is it multiple choice?
Should be. It's not?
No.
Oh no. Let me see if I can quickly change that.
You can fix that. Yeah. Hang on, folks.
Let me see. You never know. I can try.
Let's see.
It does say, let's see. Dun, dun, dun. Let me quickly see if I can try to fix this.
I wish I knew this interface.
Multiple choice. It says it's a multiple choice. They must be.
But you can only select one?
It's very odd, isn't it?
Well, go back to that screen that said multiple choice. because there might be.
Oh, I'm still sharing. Yes. See how it says multiple choice.
Let's see.
Right, but is there something else below? No.
No. Wait. Advanced questions. Scroll down.
Advanced questions.
Oh no.
No.
That's weird.
That is weird that you can't select.
Is it meant to be like multi-select instead of, is that somehow
Yeah,
different?
is there like another definition in here? Like
Yeah.
hit customize or something? No.
That's weird.
Really weird.
Darn it. So we've already failed before even demoed.
So these are hard.
Okay, so then let's just stick with that initial question, which is how do you develop on OpenShift?
Right.
And so, okay, so this is great. We've got quite a variety here. And so I'm not sure who's going to be interested in demoing first, but we kind of have it set up where you guys are going to both be using the same application. We are going to have maybe Evan, you can go first, explain which method you're going to share. And we can do a little timer. I don't think we have an online timer that we can show, but I'm going to time us. And then how long it takes for each of the methods for the heck of it.
Wow. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. I'm trying to think like if I go first, is like Ian's is far more flashy, whereas mine's more archaic. So yeah, mine's gonna maybe not look so hot compared to his now.
Well, maybe we want you to start first, and then the flashiness will be.
That's what I'm thinking. He's gonna look awesome. Let me see. Where do I share my screen? There we go. Desktop 2 share. I think I'll do not disturb. So has everyone seen that on your screens? Do you see my
we can see your
Do you mind just sharing the link in Zoom chat here? Yeah. I can distribute it out.
Chat. Oh, there we go. Zoom chat.
Ta-da.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, so for the demo, myself and Ian basically have put together an application that's fairly straightforward. It's like kind of like a hello world application. So if you've used OpenShift before, you've probably seen some of these. And this one is basically a fork of one of those. It's a node one, but I've added in a build step because I really like TypeScript. So that does add a build step, which some people don't like, but I like the type safety. So that's what this app is, a hello world of TypeScript on OpenShift. So let's see how I'm going to deploy it. So I'll give a quick overview. I have this cloned locally, and how I plan to deploy it first, I have a few different ways actually, but the main one I'm going to show, I think, because this is what I was doing at Summit that had the disconnect between me and Ian, is I'm going to build it locally. So here I have what's called an S2I script in my folder or in my project, and all that's doing is using S2I. So that's a tool that Red Hat provides, and it stands for source to image. And what it does is it takes your source code and you give it a builder image. So in this case, I'm giving it the Node.js builder image, and it will transform your source code using kind of best practices, like the standard procedure you'd expect with most of the runtimes. The same, it does the same thing with Java and other languages too. And it's going to transform that source code from a local folder into a container image using Docker, or if you use, I guess, Buildah and Podman, it supports those too, I'm guessing. But it builds that container image on my local machine, and I'm going to push that up to key.io, or you can push it up to a different image registry if you use another one. And then I'm going to deploy it on OpenShift. So I guess I'll do that. I'll dive right in. I have an OpenShift cluster over here, by the way, in Chrome. So I'm just going to deploy it into this dev project I have here. This is a free cluster, by the way. You can get it on.
This is the sandbox.
This is the sandbox. Yeah, I love it. It's so cool, like how easy it is to get these clusters. So maybe we can show that in a minute, although I'm sure you've shown it before on the channel. So yeah, let me dive right in. So we're going to run this script, and you'll see it build. It should only take a few seconds, and I'll deploy it on OpenShift. So I'm on my terminal right now, and the script is going to do s2i.sh, and this will invoke s2i. And it's really quick, actually. You can see it's already after copying my source over to the build container that it spun up in the background. So if I go to Docker PS, it's probably going to say, yeah, there you go. So I have this container spun up, and it's building my source code, and it's going to output another build image on my machine. So It takes a few seconds, but while I do that, maybe I should put the link to source the image in the chat, Chris. Would that be a good idea?
Yeah, let's share with everybody what source the image is, because there might be new people watching.
I'm sure lots of people, like if they've been using OpenShift for a while, know this, but I'll put it in here. And yeah, you can see it's just a CLI you can download. I usually download it directly, but if you use package managers, it's in, I think, most of the major ones too, like Brew for Mac, for example, and probably DNF and apt for other platforms.
Yeah.
So yeah, let me switch back over here. The build is almost done. So because this is a JavaScript project, someone's going to make an NPM joke probably, downloading the internet. But
yes,
yeah,
I have a meme for that.
It's like Maven NPM, pick your poison, right? But yeah, so that installed the dependencies and it ran the TypeScript compiler, which compiled my TypeScript to JavaScript. And I now, if I do a Docker images here, there you go, right? So it tagged it with this really long tag name that I've given it, which is key.io, and then my username and the OpenShift example. So what I'm going to do now is push that. So Docker push. So this is quite manual, as you can see. I'll push it to the latest tag in key.io.
Nice.
And hopefully it doesn't take too long. Awesome.
TikTok,
So because
that timer's going.
I know I'm doing so much explaining here. I'm not helping myself. So if I refresh here in key.io, you can see a few seconds ago, the latest tag was updated, which is awesome. It's ready to be deployed. So I'll go over here to OpenShift. And I like this developer view for doing this stuff because it gives you that nice topology when you've deployed a few things. So you'll see that now. So I'll do an add. I'm going to choose container image. And I know it's key. Oh, wait, I can just copy it from my terminal.
There you go.
Rather than typing. I got to save time. So I'll do that. And I better say the latest just in case. Obviously, it's a Node.js app, so OpenShift lets me select that label or icon. The application name, I'll just call it TS intro, and then I'll call it my Node.js server, if I can type it. And I generally actually choose deployment config for this stuff. I don't know why, it's just habit. I know deployments are maybe better, they're newer, I think they're newer, but I'm just so used to deployment configs and how to do the rollout. I just prefer to do that. And then for routing, I'll make sure it's using HTTPS and redirect to HTTPS. And now I'll click create. And after a few seconds, the app is deployed. So I'm not sure when we stop the stopwatch. Do we stop it when I open the endpoint and it displays
successful endpoint, right? Like you can't have a 500 error or something, right? Like yeah.
Okay, let's see. Okay.
I didn't start it until you ran your script.
Ah, you're very kind, actually. So in that
case, yeah,
you're being nice to me
because it's good for explanation, right?
Right.
So let's see.
There we go.
There we go.
All right.
All right.
So you were about 3.5 minutes, just about. Which is kind of cool.
That's not the fastest. Cool. I think Ian's like got skills. He might beat me here, and he's building on an OpenShift, so it's probably going to build even faster than on my Mac, I bet. Let's see. So
it'll be cool. Let's see how long it takes, and then later on maybe we can do hey, what are the pros and cons of the two?
I think so. And I have a lot of other methods to show off if we get there. But yeah, there we go. We have a nice little TypeScript Node.js application.
Awesome.
There it is.
Thank you. All right, Uth, you want to go next?
No. Sorry, was that a question? Let me share my screen a minute. So can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so before you start the timer, because first of all, I didn't realize there was going to be a timer, which is a little bit of a pain. A very quick introduction about why we wanted to do this in the first place. When we were developing on Summit, I was just using the OpenShift side because that's what I'm used to. I've been using OpenShift for so long, and I really love the OpenShift user interface. It rings my bells. I'm a bit of a pattern fly addict. But I was very surprised that all the other developers who were involved with Summit didn't use the actual OpenShift to do their builds. They were doing all the builds locally. They were using Docker, the same way that Evan just did.
Right.
I don't use Docker. I have a history. with Docker, which I won't go into because
I think a lot of us do. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been told not to swear many times.
Fair enough.
C group nightmares.
Oh, it's not so much that. I love my Mac, and Docker doesn't love my Mac. So every time I try to put Docker on my Mac, they just didn't get on like a house on fire. I think is the best way of doing it. So I don't run containers locally. If I want to do builds, which I had to do some builds like this at Summit, I've got a virtual machine running Fedora, and I use Podman rather than Docker for that. But for things with the applications where you can actually build within OpenShift itself, all those things that Evan showed you in terms of the source to image, they're all wrapped up as part of the developer experience within OpenShift itself. So whilst it's nice to be able to download the S2I and use it on a kind of local machine, I like to run my builds elsewhere. You know, I've got other things I want to do with my CPU, with my machine itself. So I found myself using OpenShift to do everything. So what I'm going to do, and if I'm lucky, I can just sneak starting without Serena actually starting the timer on it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do exactly what Evan did, but I'm going to do it all through the user interface.
Oh, nice.
And also, I'm going to add Redis, just because Evan
just
showed
goes.
Yeah, we're all friends here, and we're all honest. I didn't see this application till this morning, so and I've never built it. So this
Okay.
if this goes down, if this catches fire, then it wasn't my fault this time. It's normally my fault.
So I may have rigged the
Normally,
game. I may have rigged the game here with this application, Ian. I'm not going to tell you about all the secrets.
Yes,
The competition was real before we even started, folks.
Yeah. I say it's. I'd like to say I'm a fanboy of OpenShift. So, and people who know me know that I am a fanboy of OpenShift. But anyway, so I'm going to do it from scratch from within the user interface itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is I don't have a project, so I'm not sure if you can start the timer. But I'm going to start create a project.
I'm going to start now. Let's see.
I don't think that counts. So let's call it Earth demo for the hell of it. Going to create it. If I pop over to the developer viewpoint, same topology we had before, I'm going to do it from not the container image. I'm going to do it from the catalog. Now, the application itself is based around Node. So I'm going to use a Node.js builder image.
Okay.
Create the application. I'm going to choose 14. Was it 14 or 12 you built it with, Evan?
I did a 12, but it should work with 14.
Yeah.
Oh, here's the first gotcha.
Slower. You can answer slower if you want. My time.
Now we're being sneaky here.
I'm going to take the GitHub repo, copy it, put it into the repo itself, validates. I'll choose the same thing, deployment config, because I'm a fan of deployment configs, so I prefer them to deployments. Give an application name, I'll call it demo app. That's for the application grouping, not the application itself. And we'll call it test, because I love using the word test. Create a root, yeah, exactly the same, hit create. So how this is different to the way that Evan did it is that this is actually creating another pod before it even starts to do the application deployment itself. That pod is a build. So all the things you saw Evan do on his command line, on his local machine, are now being repeated, but they're being repeated within a pod within OpenShift itself. So I'm using OpenShift resources to do the build, and we can actually look at the build going while it's doing it. And you'll see exactly the same kind of messages that you saw from Evan's side. Something about Husky. It complains bitterly about Husky. That's the only thing I noticed when I was doing a build earlier. It's like it got to the NPM stage and said Husky is no longer supported, and you're an evil person for using Husky and all those kind of things. So yeah, so what it's actually doing now is it's downloading the image, the base image on which it's going to build. So it's going to get what we call the universal base image. Universal base image is a very useful tool. It's a very useful base image that we produced that's designed as a kind of small, easy way to actually build applications on top of. It's going and get them, it's loading them into the integrated registry before it starts to do the build. When it's got the image down, when the image is actually being produced, it'll actually start to do the binary build side of the actual application itself. I'll hit resume stream so you can continue to watch it. It will bit about the NPM stuff. And someone complained about NPM timing. I used to do, all the demos I did for about 2 years were based on Java. Mm-hmm. And I used to sit and I used to have to make up things and talk to customers while downloaded for 40 minutes. You know, and I'm saying how fantastic this system is and how fast it is and all these kind of things. Got 40 minutes of bloody class files being downloaded. Anyway, that's currently doing the kind of stuff that Evan was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And there should be an error at some point when it talks about Husky, because it scared 7 colors of crap out of me when I did it before.
Yeah, I really need to look into suppressing those. I thought I had them
So
suppressed.
this is
but
really
I don't.
interesting because we're at 308 right now.
Oh.
And
So
Container
let's
creating.
see what
It's
actually
starting. It's
happened.
finished the build. It's produced the image. The image has been pushed into the
Ooh.
integrated registry. It's now deploying it using the deployment config. There is something else as well because Evan
Honey.
cheated.
Oh, it's
Are
done.
we-
hit the link, hit the
We're
route,
done.
hit the route, hit the
Okay.
route.
See, Evan cheated, and the reason I would say
Oh,
Evan
did
cheated
I?
is that, Evan used
Did you
our
click- did he
fantastic
click
new
the route?
sandbox. Sorry.
Did you click the route? Ooh. Okay.
Does-
Well, I
does it work?
stopped as soon as
There
the
we go.
pod
There
was
we go.
running, which is the
Okay,
same thing I
cool.
did on the other one. So it's
I was,
325 versus 332, which is just interesting.
Oh.
Well,
Well,
I've got-
7
I've
seconds
got-
of savings over a year.
Yeah, that
I've got
adds
to
up.
point out a couple of
Does
things.
add up.
The first thing is I forgot to press the open URL button. But the second one is Evan is using the dedicated sandbox, this new sandbox we've got, which people can
Right.
use, which is fantastic. It's a hosted
Mhm.
system. It's a grunty, meaty system. Now, I'm not allowed to use it. I am, but I'm not allowed to use it because I'm a Red Hat employee. So I've got this sort of lesser cluster, which I run up on AWS, which
Mm.
I've got limit ranges, which means that all the pods run much slower and those kind of things. But being serious for a second, you see that exactly the same functionality, but I didn't have to fire up a command line. I didn't have to do as much typing, which, you know, when you reach my age, you know, less typing, the better. But the nice thing for me was that I could track and I could see everything that was going on from a single point. I didn't have to go off to a different page. I didn't have to go off to a different command line. Didn't have to go in different sort of perspectives. The topology gives me a wonderful single point view over everything I need for this. And it's really, really nice. And if I got time to do a couple of additional things on this demo, or,
Sure.
or
Of
do
course.
Knock
do my
yourself out.
usual thing
Yeah.
of
We don't
talking
have a
for
noon
5
show
hours.
today, so please feel free to go over.
Add the
So I'm going
Redis.
to add something else, and this is all Evan's coolness because he wrote this.
Mm.
So what this application does is it actually uses Redis to count the number of times at which the web page is an good old school web page counter,
Mm.
which I haven't seen in about 25 years. That's
Right.
what stunned me when I looked at this. I thought, Jesus, it's a page counter.
It's like it's like GeoCities or MySpace inspiration, right?
Right. No, I remember there was a site that like it was like that was all the analytics you could get back then. It was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
this little thing that just incremented as people loaded your page, which meant it was
there was
mainly
a-
you.
Exactly. You refresh your own page, right?
People still use Mosaic, right? I'm just checking.
Yeah.
So what I've done is I've added Redis to it, but it isn't currently wired in. Now, what's one of the nice features that you get with OpenShift is when you add things in the namespace, add applications themselves, each of the applications can express environment variables into all the other pods, but they're not expressed until the pod is restarted because, of course, the environment variables are part of the container spec when the actual pod starts. So I'm going to restart this now, and it should pick up the Redis thing. And again, this is going to fail. I was going to do the kind of, oh dear, it's failed, and that kind of sort of wonderful thing we normally do, but no, this will fail, but I'll tell you why in a second. So I'm going to do it the old school way. Scale it down to 0, get rid of the resources, scale it back up. And theoretically, it should start up and have the Redis database, the Redis sort of backend storage so it can actually record the number of things. And it's immediately failed.
Right.
That lovely, good old-fashioned red, wonderful crash loop back off that we're aware of. And the reason it's failed is that Redis is authenticated. It needs a password. So even though the actual configuration information, the connectivity information is expressed automatically into the deployment, we haven't got that piece of information. Now, normally this will require me going away, firing up the command line, looking at the secrets, changing a config map, doing all those fiddly things. But another nice feature of the user interface is that I can change the aspects of the deployment of the application, as well as the application itself. So what I'm going to do, and I'm going to watch Evan wince because I'm probably going to get it wrong, is I'm going to look at the deployment config, look at the environment, and I say I'm going to get it wrong because I got it wrong earlier. I'm going to add from a config map because the config map actually for Redis contains the password.
Oh.
It's part of the thing. The secret, there's a secret that's mapped into Redis that contains the base password for getting into it. So I'm going to create it with a name, and I'm going to get this wrong.
I'm watching you.
Can we just stop here or carry on?
Oh, you've got
See,
too
you
far.
get to correct him.
I've got too far. Right, sorry, it's pass, not pass.
Yeah, it's pass, yeah.
Okay, got it.
That keeps
Set
it
the
uniform,
resource.
you see, with host and port. They're all 4-letter words. You got to have, your OCD.
Right.
It's got to be just right.
This is another thing that amazes me about the Summit development teams, because everyone on the development team is at least 30 years younger than me, right? And so I come from an old school where, when I first started programming, I used Fortran, and Fortran was a horrific language where you had to tab and space, and you had a limit of 6 letters or whatever on the actual variable names. When I started to learn Java, I wrote the most verbose code you've ever seen because I could. I wrote sort of 5 pages of Java dot comments, because it was just wonderful to be verbose. And yet everyone I've dealt with on the Summit team was writing these sort of 4-letter variable names. It's like, come on, enjoy your typing. You're allowed to do it. Well, I'll select the key from it, database password. There you are, database password expressed in the secret that's part of the Redis distribution.
Nice.
If I save that, what's nice, because it's a deployment config, it's going to detect the configuration change for that application and redeploy it. When it redeploys it, and I've got my camera on, so you'll probably see my fingers are crossed, it shouldn't crash. So it isn't crashing. And the reason it's not crashing is that it actually has those environment variables now, it actually expressed into it, including the password. And I'll show you it very, very quickly to so I'm not faking. If I go into the pod,
you should share the link as well, Ian, so we can all increase that view count for you.
Oh, yeah.
what link?
The link to the web page.
Which web page?
The
right.
Node.js
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm having one of those moments.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
So send us that link and we'll bump up the numbers.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I can.
Oh,
I don't
true.
have access to the chat when I'm sharing a screen.
Just drop
No.
it. Just drop it in the Zoom chat.
I'm not
Yeah,
on
let me
Zoom.
share.
You're not on Zoom. How
Let
are
me
you
unshare
here?
in a minute and I'll share it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I want to show you very quickly the environment variables you see within the pod itself. So what has happened is when I've added another application into the namespace, there are a certain number of environment variables that are automatically propagated into the environment of the other pods that are running. So when I actually installed Redis, you'll see if I do an environment and I grep Redis, I've got a set of wonderful connectivity information for that Redis pod. And that's not part of this application. That's not part of the image. That's actually being injected as part of the deployment config. And that's the wonderful feature about developing one with the OpenShift user interface, is that you can see all of this and you can interact with it directly. So does that make sense? I mean, I know I've gone over the 3 minutes or so.
No, it does. It makes total sense.
Great.
I've also got OCD, and this is where Serena starts to wince, because I love the topology page, because I come from an OpenShift 2 background. If anyone remembers OpenShift 2, if any of you are old enough to remember OpenShift 2, I loved OpenShift 3, and then when we released OpenShift 4, we didn't have a developer user interface, and I thought, why does Red Hat hate me? And then we got this one, which is absolutely beautiful. But one of the nice things about this is the application grouping, and I think I'm one of the few people, especially on the Summit team, that went out of my way to OCD the application groups. And it's all done through, interestingly enough, the labels. So if I go to the DC, for example, look at the details for the DC test. If I edit the labels themselves, you'll find there's one in there which is app.kubernetes.io.part of, this one here. I'm going to cheat. I'm just going to copy it, assuming my Mac will let me. Come on, baby. If I go into the deployment for Redis, go to the details here, edit this, add a label, add that one. I get an application.
And you could also do that by like the drag and drop with a shift.
I'm still getting used to using a mouse. Mice are new to me. This newfangled thing called a mouse. I say that there's been a lot of enhancements lately with the topology page that I find really, really useful. I do love, and I think I may have asked for this.
Podcast.
Scale it up.
Because I love seeing the pod counts, and I was missing it when we had the original topology page. Anyway, I'm aware that I've been talking for a long time. Is it someone else's turn?
No, that was great. Actually, do you want to share the count? Did you want to share the count of that? I mean, the URL, or have we lost that opportunity already?
Well, I was going
What do you
as soon as I stopped sharing, I was going to run Siege.
I was going to do exactly that while you were there. That's why I wanted the URL to like Apache Bench.
But then I remembered it's my poor little cluster. So
Yeah, that's exactly why I wanted the URL.
So Evan, did you want to show an alternative method?
Yeah, there was two other ones I want. Yeah, there's two more I think are pretty cool and worth showing. So I'm gonna summon the screen. There we go. Okay, I think it's working, right?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Yes.
So there's two other things I want to show. The first is the tooling that we have at Red Hat for different runtimes, right? So Red Hat has runtimes. We support, as you can see, we had the supported container images that myself and Ian used, right? The Node.js one, but we have those for different runtimes. And I know at least Java and Node are the two I use the most. We have, in Java, we have a thing called Fabricate, and you can use that to deploy your Java apps really easily from using Maven. And for Node, we have the same thing. So I'm going to show that real quickly here. So if I go back to the code base here, and in my dependencies, I have this Nodeshift CLI installed. So this is the Node equivalent. If you're familiar with Fabricate, it's kind of similar. It lets you do some neat things with Node on OpenShift. So yeah, if I wanted to, for example, I can go to my terminal here, and I'll just make sure that I'm logged into my cluster here. So yeah, I'm on eShort dev. I'll change to a different project for this one, so I don't clutter things up. I'll do an npm run Nodeshift, and this is actually kind of interesting because why did it break? Did I mistype it? Oh, I need to do an npm install. That's why.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Every time.
And hopefully it's quick. But basically, this is really interesting because what Ian showed using the using the UI, where he did that setup where he used a build config, and that triggered a build and built the application on his OpenShift cluster. Nodeshift does the same thing with one CLI command. So it's another nice way to set up that whole workflow. So you can see here, yeah, it's super cool. You can see here it creates the image stream.
Yeah.
And then it's uploading the archive of my local directory, which has my source code. And you can see these logs look really similar to what was on Ian's screen. So if we go over, yeah, it's really cool. So I love this. Like, so go over to stage here in my other namespace, and I go to builds. There you go. Like, there's a build created a few seconds ago.
Yeah.
And you go to this build itself, and you can see it's only on the first build, obviously, because I just created it. And I can go in here and take a look at the logs, and it's just working like that. It's so easy. So like, we don't just have UI tools to do that either. We've both. We've CLI and UI. So when you move or graduate to, say, wanting to do this from a programmatic perspective, you can do that too. Or of course, you can use kubectl and OC to apply YAML if you're doing that in your CI pipelines too. But it's really easy. So you'll see the same logs that Ian was on about, where it kind of gives warnings about some of my dependencies. This is an old template that I have from a while ago, but it will finish building if I go over to my topology view. Oh wait, yeah. So what's interesting about this one is it doesn't apply the deployment config until the build finishes. So that's why you were seeing nothing in my topology. So what we have to do is we have to wait for this to change from status running to completed. And then
I'm also guessing you're on Sandbox, you said?
I'm in Sandbox, that's right.
Yeah. So which is, I think, is still 4.6. So in 4.7, you'd actually see the empty topology view rather than that add page as a default, if anybody's interested. So there we go.
That's it. Yep. So that'll spin up in a moment once the image gets pulled, and there you go. So if I click on the link, it might take a second. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, you got to wait for it dark blue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Container creating.
Oh, you're
It's
just trying to win now, Evan.
I'm just trying to be really
Running.
fast, you know?
And you might.
Yeah, there we go.
Keep clicking. There you go.
Wow.
Interesting. So that was 214.
That was
Which is
significantly
interesting.
faster.
So that's
Because-
significantly quicker. Yeah.
Yeah, because you're not like clicking stuff, I guess, so you can do it a little quicker. And that Nodeshift CLI, if we go back here, you can see it output the same logs that we saw in the UI. So it's mirroring the logs back to your terminal.
Okay,
So it's
I'm gonna
really
need
cool.
some Nodeshift in my life here.
It's
Like,
very cool, right?
for real. This is awesome.
And look, even if you do like, so if you're familiar with node tooling, you have this nice NPX CLI.
Yeah.
So that will call my local copy of Nodeshift in my node modules for this project. And you can see it has tons of options. Like you can specify your OCP creds or your credentials to log in, but you can also, manage if it uses, if it exposes an SSL endpoint instead of just plain HTTPS or plain HTTP. You can specify the image stream, all sorts of stuff, and also, the pretty display name. So
namespace. Yeah,
so
that's amazing.
it's really powerful too. And it also supports, I haven't really looked into this one yet, but you can create a .nodeshift file in your project. I think it reads from there. So if you want to make customizations to your deployment config, you can do that. So it's really neat. Like you can put in custom environment variables and different things. So yeah,
that's awesome.
The runtimes team, like the Node team, they're doing cool stuff. The Java team, like the Quarkus team, like they have all these cool similar tools that really make it nice for a developer when they're either staying in local or going to the UI. They can use these in conjunction. Like for example, just really quickly, if I was using Nodeshift, for example, I can go to the UI here, and I have to confess, I do this all the time. So I go to the edit deployment config or deployment, and I go to this YAML view and I copy and paste this all the time as a template for my YAML when I want to do like a CI deploy. Because I always make, I don't know about you guys, but I can't write YAML. I just always make mistakes. I never know, like, should I put a, should I put a hyphen here?
Tabs,
Yeah. Whereas with XML or JSON, I'm like, okay, like I know where I put my brackets and I know where I don't put my brackets. But with YAML, I just have no idea. So I do this all the time. I deploy using the UI, like Ian showed, or I use Nodeshift or Maven, and then I copy the resources, and then I recreate the project with those in the future in CI. So,
nice. So we got a
guilty
question
confession.
here. Can you use Nodeshift to deploy node-based OpenShift cron jobs?
That's a good
I'm not
question.
sure if I saw cron jobs on that list
I
of
don't-
options.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's mainly like deployments or deployment configs. I think
Right. That
cron
makes
job
sense.
could be a feature request though. Put
Yeah.
a cron
I mean,
flag, right?
I dropped the link to the repo, so
Yeah.
please open an issue.
It's a good idea actually.
It is kind of a good idea.
Yeah, because you can script something up in Node so quickly to do, a fetch to pull a resource and check it for
Right.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's actually
So
a
I'm
good
looking
question.
through here. No, I'm not seeding anything for cron. Yeah. So that's cool. Okay.
One more thing if I'm left to have the time.
Yeah, we still
You
have
got it.
about
20 minutes,
18 minutes or 20 minutes. Yeah.
Awesome. So what I'm going to do is open the code base locally here, and I'm just going to make like a trivial change. So I'm going to go to the index file here. So I'm using handlebars for templating, and we have a rocket ship here, which is a very cool emoji, but let's change it to like a rock star. How about that? Like a lady rock star singer here,
There you go.
right? Really easy change. I'll do a git status. I've deployed a few things, but I'm just going to git add the views for now so I don't break anything else. Commit that. So, feature, use cooler avatar, cooler emojis. And so you can see Husky here that we were getting mad at is being really good to me because it's formatting my code and keeping it consistent. So that's why I like Husky a lot. It keeps me disciplined and keeps my code like formatted. So if I'm sloppy, it doesn't get checked in without this weird formatting issues.
So Husky's a new one on me. What is Husky?
So basically it's a library you can pull in from NPM.
Okay.
There's probably equivalents for like different runtimes, but what it does
Right.
is it installs Git hooks in your project, and you can link them to scripts in your package.json. So for example, I'm using Husky and I have a block here in my, my POM or my package.json, and I put in a pre-commit hook. And basically what it does is I'm saying run my format script. So format my files. So, it's JavaScript. So you could leave out semicolons, or you might want to put them in or take them out, or, whatever. So it runs my formatting, and then it adds those updated files into my commit. So it's really nice. It basically, you can do other things, right? You can force it to run unit tests, so someone can't make a commit unless they run your unit tests and other things like that. So yeah, it's really neat. But
weekly downloads, 5 million. Yeah, I'd say a lot of people are using that.
It's very popular, yeah. And actually, the way I'm using it here is technically wrong. I shouldn't be using stage. The way I'm adding the files and formatting is not right. But what's really cool is I'm integrating GitHub Actions in this project. So we didn't talk about CI or CD much yet, but I have a workflow here that uses Red Hat's actions. So Red Hat has these really cool actions on GitHub, where if you go and check out this build, I have a source to image action. So the source to image I was doing on my own machine, or myself and Ian both did on OpenShift. You can run it here in GitHub Actions too. So you look at these logs, they're the exact same logs, because it's running the source to image binary on GitHub Actions. And then after that, I can use the push to key or query action. So it's taking the built images from GitHub or the GitHub action and pushing them to my repo in key.io. So I didn't do a build manually at all. So you've so many options here to work to get this S to Y into your workflow, right?
Awesome.
It's really cool. And these actions, I set them up last night because I've seen them before, but I never used them. And I was like, it'd be really cool to finally use these. And it's so easy because you just copy a snippet from the action documentation that the Red Hatters have built, and it just worked, basically. It was so easy. So if I go over to key.io now and refresh, you can see a few seconds ago, my latest tag got updated, and I have a new tag here for that specific commit. So it's so easy. And then if I want to just redeploy this, I can go over to my dev project, because I have my dev project pointing to the latest tag, and I can do a rollout, or I could delete the pod as well, I guess. But if I start this rollout, it's going to pull in the new build, and after a few seconds, spin off, and hopefully we got a rockstar emoji. Let's do a refresh. Oh no. Did I mess it up? Maybe. Let's see it. Let me see. Let me make sure that it's pointing to latest. It's not. So it imported an image stream tag. Yeah, it did. Let me fix that. So that's just key.io/my name. And we'll pull that in and get the rockstar emoji. Latest. Okay, so now it should, like Ian showed earlier, do the automatic redeploy, I hope, but if it doesn't, we'll just trigger a rollout. Oh yeah, no, it's already doing its own thing.
Look at that.
And
awesome.
Refresh, and hopefully we have a rockstar now. If not, demos be demos. It's not working. I obviously made a mistake somewhere, but you get the idea. It's it did the build, right, and checked it into key.io. I'm just after making a mistake here where I'm pulling the wrong tag or something. But yeah, pretty cool, right?
Very cool.
That's very cool
stuff.
Yeah.
So curious on what people think are pros and cons. Does anybody want to advocate for one over the other? I think I know which one you would advocate for. Which I love.
It's a nice user interface. It's very rare as a developer you get to use a nice user interface.
That's true. That's very true.
I think so too.
I've had years of Eclipse and JBuilder and Visual Studio and Visual Borland and all those kind of wonderful things. So yeah, but no, being serious for a second, I always found when I was using OpenShift 2 and OpenShift 3 that there were things that I had to break out of the interface to do. And when you're actually trying to code something very quickly, when you're trying to get something done very, very quickly, You don't want to be shifting around. You want to have a nice single focus. You want to be able to focus on your code, focus on what you're doing. And I find it's much easier to sit with just a single web page open. And I can go and I can see what's going on, find the problems, find the events. Was that the Rockstar?
It was, but that was locally, so I know it's working.
Yeah.
I messed up.
Oh.
I messed up my deployment on OpenShift.
I was just trying to sort of feed it into you. It's like, it's working now. No, it's I found that, especially in the latest couple of releases of OpenShift, there's been a huge amount of functionality added that makes the developers' lives easier. I've had lots of conversations with Serena in the past about the kind of workflow, because oddly enough, most of us cheat. Most of us will develop we'll develop locally. We'll go and build the images the same way that Evan was doing. And I think people need to be aware you don't have to do that anymore.
No,
you can do everything. You can dive right down it. For example, the stuff that Evan's showing right now, literally just before this stream, and one of the reasons why I'm mildly confused is I was dealing with a problem the customer had. And we were just diving straight into the YAML, literally straight into the YAML to find the problems. And it was like, fix the YAML, fix the YAML, fix the YAML.
Needle in a haystack, yeah.
Yeah, and we didn't have to leave the user interface. We didn't have to, because the minute you go somewhere else, your brain is shifting. You're thinking of something else.
You're context switching. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And I had a similar problem when I was working on Summit, and I can talk about it now because it's all done and dusted and it didn't catch fire. Where we would find a problem, we'd have to jump into another system, jump into another cluster, jump into another system. By the time we get to the root problem, the root cause of the problem itself, I'd forgotten what the problem was.
You're so many layers deep.
Never good.
You're too deep in the layers.
I ended up cheating and having a post-it pad, and I would write down sort of context to see where I'd been or what I was doing. Because by the time it was like, oh, we've made it red, and it's like, what were we trying to make red?
What was the goal here? I forget. Yeah,
it's one of those things about OpenShift. OpenShift's all about efficiency. And it just makes everything about it, the way you can deploy applications, the way you can use your infrastructure, the way you can write applications, but it makes a developer's life easy.
I think too, amazing. Like there's different ways to do that too, right? We've got the visually guided methodology now through the topology view, which makes a lot of things super easy. And Evan had demoed some of that as well during the Summit keynote, where he was doing for the binding, right, to create the binding and stuff like that. But we have a lot of methods like that, but then there's still, for people who are more advanced and really want to still touch the YAML, they can, right? Because there's definitely people who are well knowledgeable on YAML. Yeah, exactly.
I feel like pros, right? I also think it's interesting as a kind of like learning paths. Maybe I'm not sure is it like learning path the right term, but like it's not even that you graduate from one to the other, but I find like the UI makes it much easier to like get these concepts solidified in your head, right? So like, why do I have deployment configs, and how do the pods relate to those, and the builds relate to the pods and the images? Like there's loads of moving parts when you start using Kubernetes and when you start using OpenShift. But having the UI and the topology view and those nice like little labels, it makes it much easier to learn. So even just from a learning perspective, it's nice, but also when you need to make quick changes, it's so much nicer sometimes than having to like write some archaic command with patches for labels and stuff. Like you just, you can go in here, open up your build config, go to your YAML and make the change so much easier. Like OC patch commands, I've messed those up far too many times. So, or like, it just, I really like the UI just from doing these administrative tasks and getting started. And I think the UI it's one of our nicer features in terms of just as a developer getting started with this stuff, making it feel less intimidating, I think for sure is really nice.
And a couple other things that are coming in the future, because I am Serena in the future, but we will be having form-based edits for deployments and deployment configs very soon, and then possibly the release after form-based edit for build configs. So again, like you're showing that jumping right into YAML, but like if you prefer a form, we're trying to get some of that back into OpenShift 4.x, because we did have form-based edits in 3. So it's another thing we're trying to do from a parity perspective. So one thing I noticed that's interesting, Chris, is that the chat is super quiet today.
It is super
Much more
quiet, but
quiet
there's a
than
lot of
normal.
people on.
But there's a lot of people
watching.
on.
Yeah.
So are they so interested they don't want to ask a question, or what's going on? It would be interesting to hear if other people have different methods that they use or anything like that.
Yeah. So
and if
I mean,
not, I'm sure we can still talk. But
yeah. Sahir asked a question about he was having problems with a VMware install. Did Ian mention he also writes books in his spare time?
Oh, for God's sake, that's Anthony, isn't it? I'd love him to pieces. He's a fellow solution architect. Yeah, I write books. When I'm not writing software. And
Also
some
very
people
cute
like
oh.
So I
actually-
would talk more about it, but I'm getting Summit flashbacks from looking at metrics.
Yeah,
I desperately don't want that CPU one to rise.
Yeah, that was a good time.
Does a pro and con exist for most of the recommended new projects and add to projects? Could you? That's a question that's being asked. Groove CS, can you maybe elaborate on that? Like a cheat sheet? Okay, yeah. Do we have any cheat sheets about deploying to OpenShift or anything like that? I feel like this episode could spawn a few.
So actually, that's a good idea.
It is a good idea.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Serena, but don't we have quick starts?
We do have quick starts.
We do have some
We
quick
do.
starts that are limited yet right now. And actually the quick starts, if you go, whoever's sharing their screen, if you go up to the help menu on the top, and the first item under there should be quick starts.
There we go.
So there are a number of quick starts that are there by default. And the really cool thing about quick starts in 4.7 is that they're a custom resource. So any admin can provide their own customized quick starts as well to ensure best practices or whatever they want to recommend for their own developers. So that's kind of cool. And so this is interesting. So I think somebody just wrote, so should be using Git versus dev file versus whatever, and all great questions. And I think what we have tried to do inside of OpenShift on that ad page specifically is enable options and then allow that cluster admin to kind of lock down things when they see fit. When we get to 4.8, you're going to be able to see that on on the ad page, the cluster admin is going to be able to hide pieces that they don't want available for their devs. But what I guess it would be interesting to have a conversation from a Red Hat perspective or from specific developers or SAs. What do they think is the best practice?
That is.
Don't ask SAs.
Well, I'm sure we could get a lot of opinions.
Yeah, we're gonna.
I have a problem.
I think that was bait. Ian was like baiting them into actually giving their opinions.
I have a slight problem with that question because this is one of the things I talk a lot to customers about. OpenShift is a box of technical Lego. And one of the wonderful things about OpenShift is that if you want to do something, there's probably 4 or 5 ways you can do it. We don't push methodologies. We don't push opinionation on people when they're using OpenShift. It's designed to cater for other people or other ways of doing it. I get asked all the time, what's the best practice for this? What's the best practice for that? And it's, what's the most efficient practice for the way you do things?
Yeah.
It's much nicer to give people a box of technical Lego and let them build their own models than give them a model and not allow them to change the lights.
Yeah, and having like some blueprints along with the Lego, I think helps as well. So when you have options, you can build your own, customization from that blueprint, right? That works for your organization. So I think
it's why I love templates so much and why I'm happy that templates didn't go away.
Well, and somebody also mentioned dev files, which is another piece where, again, in the future, you're going to see that coming out a lot more inside of the dev perspective, which is, again, another really powerful piece that we'll have in the portfolio. So maybe we can have a session dedicated to dev files, actually.
It might be good to do that again. Yeah,
might be a good idea.
I could learn something from that one.
Do we have any news on the forthcoming build stuff? Out of interest, this is out of pure interest, because I love build configs. I love the way the build configs work. We were talking about builds v2 at some point.
Build, are you talking about support inside of the console for that?
Yeah, well,
Or just in general?
I'm just worried about when I have to learn it.
Yeah, you're gonna have to start learning soon, but it will be phased. Yeah, there's no formal commitment out in the public for when that's going to be coming into the console yet, but we are working on it as we speak. So
cool. It's password, by the way.
Oh, is it password? Is it?
Password, yeah, not pass.
Can't get me.
So there's a question here. Can dev container, something for Microsoft, files be transformed into dev files or used as is? I have no idea what a dev container file is, to be honest with you. So
I don't either. And I'm wondering if we have anybody in the audience that might be from the app services team working on dev files that might be able to jump in. I don't know.
Oh, well, I was going to give a pithy answer, but no, I won't. Having been a .NET developer for 5 years, I really sort of no, I love Microsoft.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's great that Microsoft is doing everything they're doing in the open source space, but yeah, I've not heard of the dev container reference, which I'm pulling up now.
I think it's their, is it their like similar to the code ready containers, right? Similar.
Yeah,
concept,
it looks a lot like a dev file or whatever. I'm not sure. Like,
yeah, I think it's very similar.
Did you siege that, Evan?
I did. Gotta get it over 9,000 now, right?
You gotta see it. Gotta see how far you can go. How high you can go before someone starts to complain that you're damaging the dedicated cluster.
I know.
oh.
So I think if it's okay, I'm going to share my screen super quickly, which is just going to say, hey, based on what we just showed now and what we've talked about, what method do you prefer? And just to get an idea based on after we talked and showed everybody. So let's see if I can actually find the screen that I want to share. There it is. Let's try to do a present here. And I think we only have 2 minutes left anyways, Chris, but maybe we can get people to answer this questions.
Yeah.
And again, we'll leave this open for 7 days just to get some feedback based on anybody watching this on YouTube later on.
So what was the link to this one? I forget.
Ooh, same link. Should it be the same link? Let me see.
Okay,
Give me 1 second. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, you're fine. I got it.
I think I can come over here and say share and get the link.
Yeah, I got it.
You got it? Okay.
I think
cool.
so.
All righty.
59A7, right?
Did not look. That's not the right one. Let me know and I'll paste it into the chat.
Yeah, go ahead.
Does that bring it?
Just do
okay.
It. Oh well, someone voted. So
oh, looks like it's working. Okay.
Somebody's working.
Did everyone just vote for Nodeshift?
There we
go. I promise I haven't voted. I want to keep the poll, pure.
Evan threw in a sneaky one at the end here. No, I'm just kidding. No, this was great. It was great to see we only shared 3 of the methods, but it was really nice to see just the variation of options. If nothing else, it will give people an opportunity to go think about maybe trying some of these.
Yeah.
So,
like Nodeshift is a game changer, I feel like. So working with Node on OpenShift is now way easier.
Yeah. So I want to thank both Evan and Uth for coming. This is really great. I'm glad you guys joined us and glad we were able to bring this to the community to share some of the work that you guys are doing and ways that you're accomplishing things. So thanks very much for your time.
Yeah, really appreciate it. And thank you to the audience for tuning in as well.
Yes, as always.
Yeah, this poll is going to run how long? You said 7 days. So this
I keep it open for 7 days. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So yeah, feel free to answer that poll if you're watching this, afterwards. It's still open until what is today? The 11th. So the 18th is when it will close. So feel free to watch it until May 8th or answer it until May 18th, folks.
By the way, I should add one more thing. If anyone's wondering how to fix the error I run into, make sure you update your image stream. That's what I forgot to do.
Okay, there you go.
I remembered when we were talking there earlier. I was like, I never did an OC import image to update the image stream. That's all.
So everyone is saying awesome show. Good session. Ian, there was a special shout out for you. Great to be here. You're so funny, Ian. That was from somebody named Linux Studio, so maybe you know them. I don't know. Maybe that was a plant. Maybe I don't know. But as always, thank you all for joining us, and we really appreciate it. If you want to see more of us on a regular basis, please subscribe to our streaming calendar. Which, if my mouse would work, I could open that window and type in the short code. There we go. And you can catch us every week doing stuff like this, every day almost doing stuff like this, if you so desire. So please tune in at the next available opportunity, and let us know what you want to see. You can always email me at short@redhat.com, and your show ideas are useful to me and the rest of us. So thank you very much, everybody. Really appreciate the show today. It was really good. Did not know how it would go, if it would be a crash fest or what, but y'all did great. So thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, everybody.
Have
guys.
Have a good one.
Stay safe out there.
Bye-bye.
Folks.
Have a good evening.